Chapter 3 and verse 7, it says, "Husbands likewise dwell with them with understanding, giving honor to the wife as to the weaker vessel, and as being heirs together of the grace of life, that your prayers may not be hindered." And then he says, "Finally, all of you be of one mind, having compassion for one another, love as brothers, be tenderhearted, and be courteous." Let's pray, and we'll get into it. Father, we just again want to come before you, and Lord, we thank you for our marriages. We thank you for the work that you do in us as we live together. Lord, we thank you for the fact that whether we realize it or not, you're right in the middle of the marriage relationship, and you want it to be something that's blessed. And so, Lord, as we're going through and talking about the role of the husband and what your desire is for us as guys, Lord, we just pray that you would help us to have eyes that are open to the things that we need to see and ears that we'll hear. And we ask that you do this all in Jesus' name. Amen. All right.
Okay, I wanted to say something right when we start off, because last time we ended and we were talking about guys, and then I said some stuff about training them. And afterwards, like last week, I was thinking, like, I saw a commercial, and I just hope that none of the guys took it like that. Because you know how commercials nowadays, they make the guys look like a bunch of idiots, like you can't figure out anything, so good thing we're around. You know, and that's not even how I meant it at all. You know what I mean? I just meant, like, we're crazy. And if we don't help you, there's no way you're going to know us. Yes, we barely know ourselves. You know what I mean? So that's all I was saying. So I just didn't want someone to be offended at, because I hate those commercials. I hate when guys are put down like that. It really bugs me, because I think it's so disrespectful. So I didn't mean any disrespect. I just meant, we're gonna show you like what we like, so you're not just getting it wrong all the time, because we're never, because we're switching all the time. Anyways, I figured you guys want to know that. So, okay. So anyways, just clearing that up.
Okay. So just as a poll, how many of you guys took Bobby's comments last week as a slam on men and the fact that we're dumb and we need to be trained? How many of you took it that way?
Did the guys take it like that? There, boys. Okay, maybe. All right.
I'm using that as an illustration. When she told me that she was going to do this, I was like, yeah, this is good, because this is a great illustration.
Because you guys don't even care.
Yeah. Of the difference between guys and girls. Yeah,
all right, that's funny.
Yes,
yeah, that's what I was thinking. I just needed a different word. Yes. Uh-huh.
I have a story here, and I use this all the time when I'm doing marriage, but it's because it's the greatest story on the planet Earth about guys and girls. So here it is. Some of you have heard this before, but you'll like it no matter what, and you will continually laugh. So let's say a guy named Roger is attracted to a woman named Elaine. He asks her out to a movie. She accepts. They have a pretty good time. A few nights later, he asks her out to dinner, and again, they enjoy themselves. They continue to see each other regularly, and after a while, neither one of them is seeing anybody else. And then one evening, when they're driving home, a thought occurs to Elaine, and without really thinking, she says it aloud. "Do you realize that as of tonight, we've been seeing each other for exactly 6 months?" And then there's silence in the car. To Elaine, it seems like a very loud silence. She thinks to herself, geez, I wonder if it bothers him that I said that. Maybe he's been feeling confined by our relationship. Maybe he thinks I'm trying to push him into some kind of obligation that he doesn't want or isn't sure of. And Roger is thinking, gosh, 6 months. And Elaine is thinking, but hey, I'm not sure I want this kind of relationship either. Sometimes I wish I had a little more space so I'd have time to think about whether I really want us to keep going the way we are, moving steadily toward, where are we going? Are we just going to keep seeing each other at this level of intimacy? Are we heading toward marriage, toward children, toward a lifetime together? Am I ready for that level of commitment? Do I really even know this person? And Roger's thinking, so that means it was, let's see, February when we started going out, which was right after I had the car at the dealer's, which means, let me check the odometer. Whoa, I am way overdue for an oil change here. And Elena's thinking, he's upset. I can see it on his face. Maybe I'm reading this completely wrong. Maybe he wants more from our relationship, more intimacy, more commitment. Maybe he has sensed, even before I sensed it, that I was feeling some reservations. Yes, I bet that's it. That's why he's so reluctant to say anything about his own feelings. He's afraid of being rejected. And Roger is thinking, And I'm going to have them look at the transmission again. I don't care what those morons say. It's still not shifting right. And they better not try to blame it on the cold weather this time. What cold weather? It's 87 degrees out. And this thing is shifting like a garbage truck. And I paid those incompetent thieves $600. And Elaine is thinking, he's angry. And I don't blame him. I'd be angry too. I feel so guilty putting him through this. But I can't help the way I feel. I'm just not sure. And Roger is thinking, they'll probably say it's only a 90-day warranty. That's exactly what they're going to say, the scumballs. And Elaine is thinking, maybe I'm just too idealistic, waiting for a knight to come, riding up on his white horse while I'm sitting right next to a perfectly good person, a person I enjoy being with, a person I truly do care about, a person who seems to truly care about me. A person who's in pain because of my self-centered schoolgirl romantic fantasy. And Roger is thinking, warranty? They want a warranty? I'll give them a warranty. I'll take their warranty and... Roger, Elaine says aloud. What? Says Roger, startled. Please don't torture yourself like this, she says, her eyes beginning to brim with tears. Maybe I should never have... Oh, I feel so... And she breaks down sobbing. What? Says Roger. I'm such a fool, Elaine sobs. I mean, I know there's no knight. I really know that. It's silly. There's no knight and there's no horse. There's no horse? Says Roger. You think I'm a fool, don't you, Elaine says. No, says Roger, glad to finally know the correct answer. It's that I need some time, Elaine says. There's a 15-second pause while Roger, thinking as fast as he can, tries to come up with a safe response. Finally comes up with the one that he thinks might work. Yes, he says. Elaine, deeply moved, touches his hand. Oh, Roger, do you really feel that way, she says. What way, says Roger. That way about time, says Elaine. Oh, says Roger, yes. Elaine turns to face him and gazes deeply into his eyes, causing him to become very nervous about what she might say next, especially if it involves a horse. At last she speaks. Thank you, Roger, she says. Thank you, says Roger. Then he takes her home, and she lies on her bed, a conflicted, tortured soul, and weeps until dawn, whereas Roger, when he gets back to his place, opens a bag of Doritos, turns on the TV, and immediately becomes deeply involved in a rerun of a tennis match between two Czechoslovakians he never heard of. A tiny voice in the far recesses of his mind tells him that something major was going on back there in the car. But he's pretty sure there's no way he would ever understand what, and so he figures it's better if he doesn't think about it. This is also Roger's policy regarding world hunger. The next day, Elaine will call her closest friend, or perhaps two of them, and they will talk about this situation for 6 straight hours. In painstaking detail, they will analyze everything she said and everything he said, going over it time and time again, exploring every word, expression, and gesture for nuances of meaning, considering every possible ramification. They will continue to discuss this subject off and on for weeks, maybe months, never reaching any definite conclusions, but never getting bored with it either. Meanwhile, Roger, while playing racquetball one day with a mutual friend of his and Elaine's, will pause just before serving, frown, and say, Norm, did Elaine ever own a horse? And that is a difference between men and women. There's like this total, like radical difference between the way that men think and the way that women think.
Yeah, because I seriously thought about that all week long. And I was worrying that somebody, some guy was like, God, what a jerk she is. Yeah. Like that, seriously, I was thinking that. So I was like, I gotta make sure I say that so they don't think I think that about him.
Yeah.
Okay, well, glad to know you didn't.
And we all think that's really sweet.
Okay, good.
But that's, that again is one of the things that you need to watch out for, guys, with your wife. When in this passage here, it says, husbands likewise dwell with them with understanding, giving honor to the wife. That word for understanding in the passage is the word Gnosis, and this is the definition. Primarily a seeking to know, an inquiry, investigation. It denotes in the New Testament knowledge, especially of spiritual truth. It's literally experiential knowledge. Experiential knowledge. It's the idea that I know my wife, and not just know about her or know facts about her, but I know what makes her tick, basically. And that's what God has called a guy to. Remember, all the way through this study, we've been talking about verses that are pointed towards men and verses that are pointed towards women, right? And so with men, The Bible talks about the fact that we're to love our wives and we're to do it sacrificially like Jesus does, right? And the reason that we're to do that is because we don't think in those kinds of terms. We don't think of love in the terms of giving. We think of love in the terms of providing for, or love in the terms of, yeah, I told you yesterday that I love you, and I'll tell you, I'll let you know when it changes, or whatever. We think in those kinds of terms. We don't, generally guys aren't in situations, unless something's going wrong, where they need to be affirmed over and over that their wife loves them. Generally, we're just kind of going through life and everything's good. It's all good, and so we're not necessarily worried about those things, where with women it's a different issue altogether. And so there are gender-specific commands in the Bible. And so you have this with guys specifically, and there's a reason for this. And one of the reasons for it is we don't generally do this with other guys. So I'm not interested in everything that you're thinking about. I'm not interested in all your deep emotions. I'm not interested in all that stuff. If you're my friend, you're just my friend. And we're having a good time together. And every once in a while, something will go wrong, and I'll go, dude, what's up? And you'll either let me know what's up, or you'll lie to me. And if you lie to me, that's on you. If you let me know what's up, maybe we can figure it out, right? And it's kind of like that with a guy. But when you're talking about women, you're dealing with somebody who's absolutely different. And every woman that I have ever met, and this is anecdotal, but I've been around for a while. Every woman that I have ever met, including the women who are radically logical and can do the tomboy thing and like to be around guys and all that kind of stuff, they are different than me. They're all different than me. They think differently. And so they may not be emotional as some ladies, or actually deep as some ladies. Because even though that was a caricature of guys and girls in that story, there's a lot of truth to it. And there are all these things that are going on inside my wife's head that never even occur to me because of the way that she thinks. And again, it's always been the same with every girl that I've ever been around. So a guy, I always joke around about this, but I can walk in the morning and walk up to Mitch and go, "Hey, ugly, how you doing?" Right? There's not a woman on this planet that I would ever say that to. No one that I would ever say that to, including all the rowdy girls. I would never say that to them because it sticks and it hurts and it's different. And so, the Bible talks about the differences between men and women, and actually it glorifies those things. It's a good thing that I'm different than my wife, and it's a good thing that she's different than I am. And so one of the things that's important to my wife is that I understand her. It's really important to her that I understand her and that I care about what she thinks. And one of the things that happened to my wife and I when we were young was the whole thing with her thinking that I was like her and me thinking that she was like me. And so I made some major mistakes when I first got married in the way that I treated her. I wasn't treating her with wisdom. I wasn't treating her with understanding in a situation. So my wife, when Christmas is coming up and presents are coming, and so what happens with my wife when she gets a present is she gets all excited. She's really fun to give presents to, and so it's like I could just give her presents and just forgo getting presents myself. It's so much fun watching her open them, and she'll open something up and she'll go, "Oh, this is so cute!" And she'll sometimes she jumps around and stuff like that. Well, we were married less than 3 years, probably 2 years, and it was Christmas time. And so I got my wife a Christmas present, and the Christmas present I got her was a exercise bike. And yeah. And it wasn't like I was looking at her going, "You're a fatty, you need an exercise bike." It's like, I like exercise equipment. I do. I think it's awesome. And so, I have a whole weight room, and so I got all these weights. I got 2 Olympic bars. I've got a sit-up bench. I had a guy make me a lat pull machine that I could mount in my house. I got a regular bench, like a bench press bench, and all that stuff, leg extension, all that kind of stuff. And if I had some more room, I'd be out there making me some more exercise equipment. I like this stuff. And so when I got the exercise bike, I was like, this will be cool. We're both putting on a little bit of weight here, and we can work it off.
So you were thinking that.
Yeah.
Ha-ha!
Just a little.
Just a little.
Not a bunch. And so I got her the exercise bike, and as soon as I got it for her, as soon as I brought it out and I stuck it out in front of her, because I had to put it back in the back room because there's no way to wrap the thing to make it look like not an exercise bike. And so I did wrap it up, but I brought it out, and she was like, "What's this?" And then she opened it up, and she was like, "Oh, thank you very much." And I knew immediately that I'd made a major blunder. Because there was no jumping around, there was no excitement, there was no anything except
I wasn't mean, though. Right? I was like, thanks. A weirdo? No.
And so there was all this...
I wasn't mean to you.
No, she wasn't mean to me. But there was all this stuff that I had to learn when I first got married, because I did not know how to live with a girl. I didn't know how to live with her. And I had sisters. And I didn't care how I lived with my sisters. It's like I was the eldest brother, and they just had to live with me. Was what was happening with my sisters. And I wasn't mean to them. I love my sisters, but it was a totally different thing when I was living with my wife. So when I am talking to guys about communication with their wives, one of the things that I tell them is you need to stop responding to what your wife is saying. You don't respond to what she is saying. You try to figure out why she's saying it. And so there are times when my wife will say something like, Elaine in the story says, "I know there's no knight, I know there's no horse." And he's sitting there just clueless about what's going on because she's had all this stuff going on in her head. He has no clue about what's happening there, and he doesn't ask the question. What are you talking about? He doesn't want to look stupid. And he looks stupid because he doesn't ask the question. And there's ways to ask the question, but one of the things that I always pay attention to is when my wife says something to me and there is that nagging suspicion in the back of my mind that something's going on that I don't know about, I pay attention to the nagging suspicion and I go, what was that about? And then I start pursuing that whole thing. And I find out why she says it. I do the same thing in counseling too, especially when I'm talking with ladies. Generally speaking, when I'm talking with guys, it'll be a little bit more straightforward because that's how guys think. But when I'm talking with ladies, they give hints. And ladies, I'm not saying that you give hints. I'm telling the guys, I'm talking in guy speak right now. They give hints about what's going on inside. And they don't flat out tell you. And I can see reasons for that. And some of the reasons are that they don't want to be demanding and they don't want to seem like they're needy and that kind of thing. And frankly, they're treating you like you're a woman. That's how they talk to other ladies. Because if a lady gives another lady a hint, then the other lady will pursue the hint and find out exactly what's going on. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. You have anything to say
Well, I already have questions.
Yeah.
So if Debbie's telling me something at school, I already have 10 questions and I need to ask her about whatever she just said to me.
Right.
So, I would never just be like, and then go on. I hardly ever do that.
I don't know if any guys know what you just said.
I don't know either. I'm sorry. I'm just talking to girls. Go on. You talk to the boys.
No, you need to tell them. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, I don't know what to say.
Okay, Debbie's asking you a question. You already have 10 questions that go along with it.
Well, yeah, because if I say this, it sounds mean, but I care about what she's. We do it with our kids. Wives do it with our kids. So my boy, here he is. He's telling me. He says, I say, "How's your day?" And he goes, "Fine." And I could just leave it there, and he'd never speak to me for the rest of the night. But I go, so I just ask a specific, well, how's Johnny? How's your friend Johnny? who was in your class yesterday? Because I remembered what he said about Johnny yesterday in the class. And then he tells me a little bit more. And so it's just kind of like you dig. I don't know, you're digging a little bit. You're asking another question to see like what else is happening. But I don't know if you guys want to ask any questions or not. I'm just saying that's what girls do. That's what we do to each other. I know. So I would ask, Rube another question about that. Well, what about because she just called me and gave me a prayer request today, and I was like, oh, well, how big is the baby? Well, so I would ask her a question she didn't even know. She's like, I don't know. I'll find out for you. Okay. I don't even know those people.
Have you noticed this when you're talking on the phone to somebody? So you're talking on the phone to somebody, guys. You're talking on the phone to somebody. And, it's a 15-minute conversation. You're going through, like I call my sister or something, and I find out that, I don't know, my sister's pregnant. She's going to have she just had her baby and, that kind of thing. So my sister lets me know she has her baby and stuff. And I'm like, oh, cool, and, we might talk about she fixed up the nursery and did a couple of things like that. And so I get off the phone, and my wife comes up to me and says, so, what'd you guys talk about? I said, my sister had a baby. She had her baby, and she fixed up the nursery. And she goes, well, how big was the baby? I don't know. I have no idea. Well, how long was the baby? I don't know. How long was the labor?
What's the baby's name? How bad?
Seriously, what's the
Sometimes
baby's
you
name?
know that.
Yeah. Well, what else did you talk about? Well, we talked about the nursery. Well, my sister fixed up the nursery. I have an answer now. She fixed up the nursery. Really? What color? What'd she put on the bed? Did she get a crib? Did she, boom, 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 boom. She's got all these things. And I go, I don't know. Here's the phone. You call her up and ask her. And it's just, again, and again, I'm kind of an extreme example because I care about things, and the things I care about, I want to talk about. And there's other things, if I'm not deeply involved or, it's not something that's important to me, I'm not going to ask a bunch of questions about it. And that's kind of a guy thing. And so you're dealing with a different person. You're dealing with a different kind of person when you're dealing with your wife. You're dealing with somebody who cares about a whole bunch of stuff, and you need to know why she's saying things, why she's asking things. Why did that phrase just come out of her mouth, right? And we talked about this before.
And I was thinking, like, you could give a couple details without, because sometimes I say this to Steve, I'll be like, so how is work? And he goes, fine. And I go like, for real? That's it? That's all you have? And he goes, well, what do you want me to say? And I go, I don't know. Just anything. Anything else besides fine. And so he does. So like if you could just give us a couple little somethings, then we'll be good. We don't have to. Well, I don't know. Maybe I might ask another question. You might be getting in deeper than you want.
That's the danger.
But I'm going to say to girls, sometimes that's what girlfriends are for, because really and truly, Steve does not want to know every detail that I feel like telling him. And I've just found that out being married. And I used to get really offended about it, because it isn't one of those. Because one time he did this to me. I'm talking, and he goes like this. And I was like, are you kidding? I was like so offended. Like, what? Speed it up? All these things matter, what I'm saying right now about this story. Well, until we had a teenage daughter. And I was all like, because she's telling me like, and I felt like saying like, skip to the end. What happened at the end? And then right when I thought that, God's like, that might be how Steve feels sometimes. I'm like, I think it is. I think I got it. I finally got it. Because he didn't care about every stinking detail. But I do. I just talked to a girl at the hair salon. I don't even know her. She was just like, oh my gosh, my friend just had her baby at 6 weeks or whatever it was, born 3 months early. And I go, well, how big is it? And so I don't know, let me look it up. So she looked up, well, what's his name? I'll start praying for it. I don't know. We just had this big conversation. You probably would never even asked how big it was.
Right. Have you guys, back in the old days, I used to go to the barber. You guys remember?
Oh my gosh, that's a good story.
Some of you younger guys, you don't know this. But you go to a barber, you go in and you sit down and everybody's totally silent in the room.
Let me tell my story.
Okay, go ahead.
Let me tell my barber story. Because I have a barber story. So girls, you need to go to the barber. I'm not the hair salon person. Okay, not a guy who's in a hair salon, but a real live barber. So I take Nathan because Steve was busy. I'm like, oh, I'll just take him in. So we walk in, and it's this old guy in downtown Kennewick, the barber. And I walk in, there's probably like 7 or 8 guys in there, and the barber. And he's cutting someone's hair. And so I just walk in and I'm what? It's complete silence. No one says hi. No one looks up at me, nothing. I was like, So I just sat down, and then I didn't know what to do. Then I was like, and they're all watching the game. There's some game on. So, and then like about 10 minutes later, I'm serious, I'm still sitting here. No one has said one word to me. 10 minutes later, some guy says something to the other guy about the game. Can you believe that? No. And I'm like, really? So then that guy gets done getting his haircut. He gets down. He pays the barber. The barber says, thanks. Another guy brings his kid and puts his kid up there. They're not even speaking. And the barber says like this, boy haircut? And the guy said, yep. And that was it. That was like, and I was like, I don't even know what space I am in line. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. It was horrible. I told Steve, I am never going back there ever in my whole entire life. I don't even know what I'm doing. So I just waited. I waited till everybody went because I didn't know what my turn is. I don't know if there's a turn or what.
That is your turn.
Yeah, whenever it's after everybody else.
Is there first.
It was like the weirdest thing I've ever experienced in my whole entire life. Because now I just was at getting my hair cut, and we talked the whole entire time. And that other lady who I don't even know is talking to me, telling me about the baby that was born. And then another lady came in, and they were talking to her about, yeah. So that's how our things go. And I think it's a little bit more like that nowadays because guys go more to salons nowadays than they go to the barber. But wow, that was a good eye opener for me.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay. They seriously are thinking about nothing. Right. Not even like, hi, ma'am, how are you? I didn't even know how much it was. At the end, I'm like, what? Do I need to give you money? I don't even know what's happening right now. And he just told me $10 or whatever it was. And then me and Nathan walked out without saying anything else. Oh, horrible experience. That's like, you know what? That's like at Kennewick Industrial. Go there and ask for a pipe. No, I'm never go. I told you, do not send me there. I'm not going there. I'll go to Home Depot. That's okay because there's girls working there. But in Kennewick Industrial, you go in there and you're a girl. They don't even look at you. I'm not kidding. They think you don't even. She probably didn't even know what she wants because I don't. Here's a pipe. It looks like this with some weird things at the end. He said there's a male part and a female part. I just even sit in the truck. I'm not kidding. Steve goes in like, I can't even go in there. I can't. No one even looks over at me. Anyway, funny stuff. Go ahead. I don't know how that helps anyone, but it's just funny.
They have popcorn.
Yeah, they have popcorn. That's why my kids like to go there.
Yeah.
Well, when they're little. But.
So anyway, knowing your wife is an important thing, and you're to dwell with them with understanding. And so, you can go down through a list of things that will hurt your wife's feelings if you don't know them. Right? And so, like your anniversary, that's a big one. You should know the anniversary, and you should know her birthday. And there's a good chance you should know her mom's birthday. And obviously you need to know what's going on with the kids. You need to be somebody who's interested in the things that she's interested in, basically. And especially in those things that are important between you and her. And so you need to know that stuff. You need to know the things that please her. Do you know your wife's favorite color, for example? This is something that I ask guys who are young married. And, I don't know that my best friends know my favorite color. They have no idea. Mitch, do you know my favorite color?
Does Mitch care? He's colorblind. That's why he doesn't care.
Do you care about my favorite color? And so, yeah.
Oh, see? He knows Marcy's.
Right. And so, actually, one of the things I think I told you guys this last time, Lindsay, when I was talking to her about a relationship with God, actually she has this little sign that she puts up in her office, and it says, "Jesus knows me, this I love," and that's the idea behind it. She loves it that Jesus knows her better than she knows herself. That's a quote from Lindsay. I asked her one time, what you love the most about the Lord? He knows me better than I know myself. And so the Bible says that you're supposed to be like Christ in your wife's life. And that's what he's talking about right here. Likewise, dwell with them with understanding. Good? Mm-hmm. Anything else? Okay. Then it says giving
honor. Do they know how to do that? Do they need some examples, or do you need? That's fine. Okay, that was good. I don't know. I can't think of any. I'm just telling you.
Okay.
To do it. Okay, go ahead.
I just gave some.
All right, that's good then.
You weren't listening.
They're all fine. No, I listened.
You want better ones?
I don't know.
We talked about gift giving last time, right? So you need to know your wife well enough to know what kind of gift you'd like to, that you'd like to get her. And, again, like we talked about last time, it's nice if the wife will give the guy a break, until he can take off with it on his own. And so when we first got married, Bobi would take me into the mall, and she would point out things that she liked. And I went out and got things that were similar to what she liked. Actually, sometimes I got her something that was totally different, but because of the things that she chose, I realized where her tastes were at. And so I could pick something absolutely different than what she was picking out, and it would be something that she liked.
Did you already say about coming home and listening for a little bit? Did you already give that? Did we say that one time?
Yeah.
Was it here or somewhere else?
I think so. Did we talk about the first half hour when I came home?
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. So that kind of stuff. And you know what? Then there's other things. And I just wanted to give you some examples of this kind of stuff, because a lot of times when guys are thinking of things that they can do for their wives, they're thinking, ladies, guys have a tendency to think monetarily, or value-wise, in the sense of it needs to be something big, and it needs to be something good, and it needs to, it needs to be impressive, and that kind of thing. And when we first got married, the economy was pretty tanked, and so we didn't have a lot of money. I wasn't working full time, and so our first Valentine's Day, we literally had no money. I didn't. I think I had. Did I get you? I think I got you. No, I didn't. I didn't even have enough money to get her a Valentine's card. And so Valentine's Day is coming up, and I've got nothing to give her, and I know it's going to be an important day. It's not that important for me in the sense of I don't need stuff, but she needs something. And so what I did was I realized we have paint, and so we're in a rental home. Some friends of ours were renting this home to us, and there was paint. The walls had just been repainted, and so there was paint for painting the walls, and there was red spray paint out in the garage. I had it for some project that I had. And so what I did was when you came in the front door, there was a big old wall there right next to the fireplace, and I just went in with red spray paint and painted a big old Valentine on the wall.
I know, best present I ever got for Valentine's Day.
And so, then we had dinner or something like that, made dinner at home and that kind of stuff. And obviously the reason I did, I knew I could do that was because I could come back in with paint the wall, and everything would be cool.
Yeah, maybe don't do that if you don't have that.
Yeah, if you don't have that, that's not a good thing.
Or you did it on her wood or something.
Yeah, not on the wood. It was on the sheetrock. But stuff like that can be stuff that is just golden, because she knows that I'm thinking about her and I'm caring about her. And
I remember we were watching that video about, I can't remember what guy it was, and he was talking about, if you took a poll of guys, they would say that, get something for their birthday, and they wait till there's big things and then do something big. And if you polled the girls, we would, they said, would you rather have a dozen roses once a year, or 1 rose 12 days in a row, or something like that, he said. And almost every single girl said, we'll take 1 rose every single day. Because that just means you thought about us every day. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, you thought about me again? You brought me another rose? No way. Like that. Instead of the big one, but the guy was saying, most guys are just thinking big, because you're thinking a dozen roses. That's gigantic, right? Because that's what you're supposed to get. Anyways. Mm-hmm. Yeah, a dozen's good also, but just saying. For 12 days.
Right. A dozen roses.
That's if you're
for
rich and you
days.
have money. Anyway.
Would you really want, you wouldn't want a dozen roses for 12 days.
I do different flowers every day.
A dozen roses?
A dozen flowers, different flowers every day, sure.
You have 12 big, huge flower arrangements sitting around the house.
I like flowers. You could get me as many flowers as you wanted.
See, I just learned something.
Okay, because you remember that one movie where I can't even remember what movie it was, but some guy liked her, and then she walked into her office, and her whole thing was filled with flowers. Well, we all know that movie.
What are you
I don't
going to
even
do
know
with
what it is. I don't know. It's just fun.
You're going to throw it
We're
away.
like, he loves me. Loves me. I don't know. Okay, I'm just saying. But I'm just saying, it's just the thought, that you thought about your wife. So whether it's that or you picked a flower on the way home or, whatever, all that means the same thing, to us. So
yeah. Okay, then it says, husbands likewise dwell with them with understanding, giving honor to the wife as to the weaker vessel. And the word honor there, it's just the idea of treating her with respect. And so even though respect is a big deal on the guy's part, it's also something that needs to be pointed towards a lady. And so I respect my wife. I respect her position. I don't cut her, I don't cut her down in front of people. I seriously don't cut her down in front of my children. It's like she's to be honored in my home. And so, again, that's something to keep in mind. I don't know that lots of people have problems with this, but women are not peons in the kingdom of God, and guys are not the elite. And again, people are to be treated with respect. And so when I look at the way that specifically ladies get, the way that my wife gets treated and the way that ladies get treated around me, what I'm looking at is their gifts and their callings and stuff like that. And so there's a lot of positions around here at Calvary that the women fill, and they're important, and they're treated as being important. Because again of that principle, you're to give honor. And then it says, as to the weaker vessel. And that doesn't mean because I can bench more than Bobi. I could bench like 3 of you.
Yay.
Just want you to know.
I know, you got the big muscles.
Anyway, it's not because I can bench more than Bobi. It's the idea of the difference between a guy and a girl. And so vessels, the word that's used there for vessel is talking about household plates, household glasses, and that kind of thing. And so when I think of the difference between a woman and a man is like a jug, and a woman is like a vase. A man is like a beer mug, and a woman is like a wine goblet. That's the idea behind the language that's there. And so that's the way that I'm supposed to be treating my wife. When I first got married, one of the things that I used to wrestle before, when I was in high school. And so one of the things that I would do with my wife is I would wrestle with her. And so I'd goof around, and I'd show her the guillotine, and I'd do all these different moves on her and that kind of stuff. And we'd be down on the ground wrestling around. And she'd be going, "I am a vase! Because I'd taught this at one point, and she was, trying to get me in the right place. And so, to the weaker vessel again is talking about the fact that I'm to recognize that there's a difference between her and I, or her and me, and that the difference is supposed to be respected and it's supposed to be paid attention to. And so we talked about this a little bit last week as far as the way that I treat my wife. It's like opening the door for her and just lifting her up and making sure that she feels like she's number one when she's around me and that kind of thing. And so guys, you need to do that. And if you don't do that, then things are going to go badly for you, because it's something that they need. Again, this is gender specific, and there's a reason for it. And so you want to pay attention to that. And it says, and as being heirs together of the grace of life, that your prayers may not be hindered. And so that's the idea that she's a fellow partner with me in my marriage, and she's a fellow partner with me in my relationship with the Lord. In a lot of our cases, she's a fellow partner with me in ministry, and so I treat her like that. And so when I think that people that know us well, I know that a lot of times I'm the only one who's standing up here teaching, and so some of you don't know me as well as others. And so you think of me as Steve. And so I'm kind of a guy that's on my own. But if you know us well at all, or if you've been around for a long time, it's Bobi and Steve. That's how it's always phrased. It's never Steve and Bobby. It's always Bobby and Steve. And, the Bible talks about the fact that a wife is somebody that completes her husband. And I'm talking to the guys here. In the Old Testament, God said that it's not good for the man to be alone. I'm going to make him a helpmeet. Actually, it's a helper that completes him, is literally what it says in Hebrew. And it's vice versa, too. It goes the other way, but I'm talking to the guys. And so she's somebody, you have a deficit. You have parts in your life that are missing. And what God's done when he's brought you a wife is he's filled up those parts that are missing. It's not an optional thing, and it's not an added on type of thing. It's something where God has looked at you and he looks at you and he goes, not good. I need to bring somebody along to fix this, is how we would think of it. I needed to be fixed. And so there's a number of areas in my life that Bobi has changed just because she's there. And so, I always joke around about this stuff, but when we go places, I'm pretty quiet, generally speaking. And especially when I'm going over to some place and I don't know people really well, or I'm feeling uncomfortable at the time, and I'll just be pretty quiet. But you can tell she's bubbly. And so we come in the room, and the room is filled up with light and laughter, and I can be sitting in the corner saying nothing, and we are an awesome couple, and it's because, again, of that whole thing. And so she's always been like that in my ministry. Now, admittedly, what goes on around here now is we're bigger, and so it's not the same kind of dynamic as it was when we were first doing the church. When we first did the church, it was in my home. It was a Bible study. And so what Bobi would do is she would pop popcorn, and she would get drinks and all of this stuff. And everybody would be sitting around eating popcorn and drinking stuff in my living room while I was teaching the Bible. And everybody loved it. Everybody hated it when we came to church and we didn't have popcorn anymore.
No, I need to make some more popcorn, huh?
Yeah.
For Wednesday night popcorn.
And so it was always like that. And then afterwards, she would have a dessert, and everybody would have dessert afterwards. And so she has a gift of hospitality. And so it's one of the things that made the church grow quickly when it was in my home. And it's because we were a team. And basically, people would come over and just go, "Oh, we had so much fun, and it was so awesome." And a major portion of that was the fact that my wife was there. She is an heir together of the grace of this life. And if I don't recognize this stuff, and this is one of the things that, guys, you need to be paying attention to, again, husbands, dwell with them with understanding, giving honor to the wife as to the weaker vessel, as being heirs together of the grace of life, that your prayers may not be hindered. And so God expects this stuff to be done. And, you just don't have a situation where you can separate yourself from your wife on some kind of spiritual level and think that you're going to be okay with God. It's not going to work that way. When you are married, actually I'm getting ready for Sunday morning, and so I'm going through a passage on divorce. And when Jesus answers a question on divorce, what he does is he defines marriage. And they say, they come to Jesus and they say to him, "Can a man divorce his wife for any old reason?" And he says, "From the beginning it was not so. God made the man, God made the woman, and then he brought them together, joined them, and the two became one flesh. Therefore a man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and what God has joined together, don't let men separate." And what he does is he goes through and he defines marriage. And he defines it in such a way that he brings this importance about. I mean, the crowning verse in that passage is, "What God has brought together, let not man separate." The word for marriage in Hebrew is the word for consecration or sanctification. It's literally the word that's used to represent the fact that when I become married, I become somebody that's been set apart for my wife, and she's become somebody that's set apart for me, and we're joined together in that way, and God is the one who does that whole thing, and it's important, okay? And so when you look at marriage, guys, when you look at your life with the Lord, what is your first ministry? What's your first ministry? No, it's not marriage. It's God. Yeah. So your first ministry is to the Lord, right? What's your second? Yeah, it's to your wife. And so, in that passage, the Bible has all these levels of responsibility, and so it goes the Lord first above anything, and then if you're not married, your second responsibility is, as far as relational type stuff goes, is to whom? Yeah, your father and mother. It's the fifth commandment. And so honor your father and mother. But when God set up marriage, he set it up in such a way that it supersedes the fifth commandment. You're going to leave your father and mother, and you're going to be joined to your wife. And so it goes God, and then your wife, and then your children, and then the rest of your family relationships, and then, any relationships outside of that, work, that kind of stuff, and in my case, ministry here, those kinds of things. That is the order. And so your first ministry, besides your ministry to the Lord, is to your wife. And so you need to make sure that it's being done right. There's all these guys who, when they become pastors or when they get involved in ministry, guys have a tendency to be all in on something. And what they do is they neglect their family for the sake of ministry. And they go after the things that God has called them to. And they leave aside the major thing that God's called them to, which is their relationship with their wife. And because of that, their prayers are hindered. The spiritual walk that they're supposed to have, they're never going to have, because they're not paying attention to the most important thing that God gave to them, which is their wife. And so I've talked with guys, and we have this tendency to be able to compartmentalize our lives. And so we can go, work is awesome, and ministry is awesome, and my walk with God is awesome. Everything with my wife is junk. Everything with my kids is awesome. And we take and compartmentalize things that way. And I've had conversations with guys who wanted to be involved in ministry or were involved with ministry, and something came up, and I found out about their home situation. I go, how are things with the Lord? How are you doing with God? Oh, it's just awesome. And they can go on and tell me all these great things that God's doing in their life. And then I'll go, how are things going with your wife? Well, and then we start having a talk. And I have to point out to him, you do realize that things are not going well between you and the Lord, because things are not going well in the first ministry that he gave to you. And that's what that verse is talking about. I need to be paying attention to this stuff. And so that's the main thing that I'm telling you guys. These things, we go through and talk about them, and we joke around about them, and we mess around with the differences between men and women and that kind of thing, and they are really there, and that kind of stuff, and have a good time, that kind of thing. And what you don't want to do is walk out and forget this, because God, it's important that you remember it, because it's something that God is checking you out on. And so you want to make sure that you're treating your wife in the way that she should be treated. And then finally, he says in verse 8, finally, all of you be of one mind, having compassion for one another, love as brothers, be tenderhearted, and be courteous. And so that, again, is that whole idea of mutual submission. And so even though I am the guy who's in charge of my family, and even though I am the guy who's responsible for God, to God for the things that are going on in my household, even though all that's true, I'm supposed to still be all this stuff. And so on the one hand, I'm not allowed to be a Marvin milquetoast and allow all the situations that are around me to run me over, including my wife. And so I'm supposed to be the guy who's in charge. And so if you're the kind of guy who just backs off and lets everybody else take charge of things, you're going to be judged for what's going on in your home. And so it better be going well. And so you need to make sure that you're in charge. I have seen ladies literally wreck their homes because they would not listen to, I don't know. Sometimes they won't listen to their husbands. And, we've talked about regarding kids and raising kids. And sometimes they won't listen to their husbands regarding the place that they go to church, that kind of stuff. Two things that I've seen destroy people's homes. The fact that the woman is in charge of raising the children and does not do it biblically, and the fact that the woman is in charge of where they go to church and does not do it biblically. And it just wrecks the home. And so those are places that the guy is supposed to be, you're supposed to be in charge. You're the one who's going to give an account for those things. And so I am the spiritual leader in my home whether I want to be or not. I'm the spiritual leader in my home whether I think I am or not. I'm the spiritual leader whether I feel like I know more than my wife does or not. I'm the spiritual leader. And so I have to be paying attention to things spiritually. And I, again, am the guy who's going to give an account before God of what's happening with my children. I'm going to give an account before God of what's happening with my wife. And I'm going to be giving an account of what's happening with my finances and, all of this stuff. I'm giving an account of it before God, and so I need to know what's going on. So don't abdicate. You need to be paying attention to those things. So that's for the guys who are kind of mild-mannered. Then for the guys who are tyrants and are control freaks and want to have their hand on everything, and it must all go exactly my way. Be of one mind, having compassion for one another, love as brothers, be tenderhearted and be courteous. You're not living there alone. So in your home, you're not there by yourself, and everybody is not there to kowtow to you. And so, again, you see this with Jesus. Jesus is in control. He knows what's going on. He knows how things are supposed to go. He's got it ultimately in control. You can see it with the disciples when he was here on the earth. The way that he treated the disciples, he didn't run these guys into the ground. But then on the other hand, he didn't just let them go off and do whatever they stinking pleased. There was a balance between the two things. And so there were times when he was checking them out, and then there were times when, he was stepping back. Sometimes he would let things happen, and then he would correct them, and sometimes he would enter in before everything went off the rails. And so, it's one of those kinds of things. And I'm not saying that you need to go through life just being worried about everything that's going on, but you can tell when you're punting in a situation. You can tell. Situation comes up and, it's kind of important and you don't really want to deal with it and you punt. And so you give it to your wife or you give it to somebody else and you allow them to take over and that kind of thing, and you just move on and go watch TV or something. There's nothing wrong with having downtime and that kind of stuff. Don't punt on your responsibilities because, again, you're going to be standing before God on this stuff. Anything else? You got nothing?
I don't think so.
Okay. Let's do questions.